Got a motion approved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, corrections, or additions to those minutes? Being none, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Today we have a large agenda. We have 22 items currently on the agenda. About half of these items today will allow public comment. And I'd ask you to restrict your comment to strictly to the usage of the property and no inferences to people or parties that own the property. That's what we're taking here is with zoning is comments on usage of the property. The agenda items that will not allow any public comment will be the sketch plats, and they're items 14 through 21. So those people who are on those should go quite rapidly. But the items prior to that will all allow public comment. The first order of business on a regular agenda is a rezoning request. To consider a rezone petition from AG to R1, R2, R3, CC, LC, and GI for property described in the northwest quarter of Section 28, Township 140 North, Range 96 West. At this time, I'd ask the party presenting.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Harvey Schneider with Tolman Engineering. With me is Mike Cook. He's the owner and developer for this subdivision. The zoning request that is in front of you today is for Cook Meadow Hills 4th edition, which you approved the final plat on February 15th. At that meeting, I handed out a colored zoning map that had a preliminary, and we had a preliminary discussion at that time on the proposed zoning. I believe as part of your packets, a color drawing was included along with a breakdown of the lots and the blocks with the different zoning requests. The zoning as requested today is will be incorporate multiple zoning districts from the low density residential, which is indicated by the yellow on the map, the medium density residential, which would be indicated by the orange, the high density residential would be indicated by the green, the community commercial, which is the lighter, indicated by the lighter blue. The limited commercial would be the dark blue. And then there's also an area where we left it agricultural down with the drainage ditch that runs through the southwestern part of the project, and then also where we're putting in the detention area would be agricultural. During the plating process, when we were working on this, we met with Sean and Ed on several occasions, and we talked about the zoning, and there were some changes made based upon their recommendations. I guess with that, does the Commissioner have any questions of me? Or Mike?
Do you plan to retain ownership of the agricultural?
I guess the city's taking it.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments for Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Schneider, I think the rezoning is fine. I had the one concern last month that maybe I'll talk about a little bit, but I've got a couple questions here for you, if I could, for either you or Mr. Cook, just to try to understand the future of the development a little bit. And I'm not sure you'll have these answers, but With respect to the R3, I'm trying to get a handle on how many units we may end up with in the R3 zoning up there. I know there's construction already taking place in Block 3. And how many units is that? I think those were, is that 342s, as I
I
recall?
believe so. I could probably have Mike.
I'm sorry?
448.
448s, okay. Do you have any idea what will happen in the other R3 zones? Blocks 4, 5, 6, and 7? What do you know to date? What do you think you're going to see for number of R3 units in those?
I'll let Mike.
Sure.
talk to it.
I'm not exactly sure how many there will be. We've gotten a couple of site drawings back for a couple of them. Let's see, block, I gotta change glasses here. Block 3, there's a group that they're looking at doing a mixture of 4 to 8 units in there. I counted about 52 units, roughly speaking.
And where is that?
That would be Block 3,
Okay, block,
or Block 5, I'm sorry.
okay, and how many?
About 52 is what I've seen on their preliminary so far. The other two groups, I think we talked about in Block 1 before. Block 4, I'm having a hard time seeing these, but just to the west of that, that group is looking at doing the same thing, a mixture of duplexes to 4 and 8 units. They were, from what I could see there, they were looking at approximately 36 of them. There you go. The other two groups I haven't seen anything on, so I can't really tell you.
Okay.
All of the orange, we have, of course, if you're just interested in the R3, but those are all R2s. That group is planning on doing about 18 duplexes at one time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I might?
Yes.
Mike, do you have any idea when this whole project would be completed? I know that's a difficult question to
We're
ask.
putting some pretty stringent dates on. We've released the dirt work. Dirt work should be completed by June 1st. We're bidding sewer and water as we speak. That is going to go into 2 phases, which we're putting a July 15th deadline on. And the paving, we've already negotiated that, and that's going to be an August 31st deadline. So we're hoping September,
Okay,
barring weather, of course, and any of that kind of stuff. So
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who'd like me to comment on this, please feel free to come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mike Mouse appearing on behalf of Fred Klein, Klein Production Company. Permission to pass out an exhibit here.
Yes.
We had Catamus Lee Jackson put in the pipeline in the well site location, and I understand for the first time this morning this plat's already been approved. We need to bring some concerns to your attention because the pipeline as it exists is not in the right-of-way that's been platted for this 4th edition. The concerns are that, one is that this pipeline does not go through the easement area. The easement area in this one was shrunk down from 50 feet to 40 feet. You recall in Prairie Hills, or in the Coates Meadow Hills 1st edition, there was a 50-foot easement. This one's got a 40-foot easement. But if you look just right immediately east of the well, you'll see that easement somehow shifts to the north. The pipeline actually runs through the corner of that lot. If you look to the west of the location, you'll see the pipeline is actually below the easement by 15 or 20 feet, and it angles off to the northwest. The concerns we have are the pipeline easement. Two is access to an oil well location requires a 70-ton road. Streets don't ordinarily meet those requirements. This existing road, which is an easement by prescription, does. From time to time, they have to bring a workover rig into this location. It has to work on the south side of that dot that's in the middle. There is insufficient space to turn around. If you look at the very top of Lot 13, it actually cuts through the bottom of the surface portion of the well location. So the road is insufficient in width, and if you come in from the north as they proposed, there's not enough room to turn a workover rig around. The pipeline easement does not run where the pipeline runs. And for those reasons, we're bringing to your attention, there's concerns with regard to the plat. Now, Klein Production Company, unfortunately, was never contacted by the developer about these matters, but the location has to be slightly bigger to allow for turnaround of a workover rig. The road either has to be the same or it has to be a 7-ton road that allows access with a workover rig, which happens maybe once a year or periodically throughout the course of this well's lifetime. And like I indicated, the big problem is that the well pipeline is not within what they've platted as a pipeline easement. Wanted to bring those concerns to your attention because as platted, there's going to be some problems if it's allowed to remain that way. Any questions?
No questions at this time.
Mr. Chairman, we could have the
Cortana.
applicant respond to that, but just for clarification for Attorney Mouse, this has went through the first reading. I mean, it went through Planning Commission, and it has not been officially finalized by the City Commission. We're still working with the developer on the development agreement, so you need to bring your information forward to City Commission whenever that's put on the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Corton. At this time, I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment, please feel free to come forward.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to make a couple of responses. I guess as far as the pipeline, when we were preparing the plat and such, we did have the utilities located, and we tied them in on site. And I guess that's how we had indicated our easements on the plat, based on what was located in the field. And we did work with, Klein Production or Fred when that pipeline, the pipeline from the well going to the east up to, I believe it's 12th Street, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was replaced. And at that point, we were working with them, and we tied that in as they were, installing that pipeline. And yes, there was a jog in that where they went straight, and then they jogged over towards their well. But with that, as far as the turnaround, we thought with what was indicated on the plat was, ample with them. And I guess we'll be happy to meet with Fred right after the meeting here and, discuss the matters. I guess I wasn't aware of what they had done there, so, but we'd be happy to visit with them.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder.
You bet.
This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment, please feel free to come forward. If being none, are there any comments from the commission?
Mr. President, or
Mr. Jackson.
Chairman, as to the rezoning, I still have the concern that I did last month about the commercial for the entire half mile. And my concern isn't so much about this particular half mile. If this was the only commercial we had, it'd be fine. I'm just afraid we're setting a precedent, and I don't know that we want commercial for this entire 4-mile stretch of road. But I will acknowledge that it's a questionable enough issue that if the rest of you are comfortable with it, I guess okay. But it's just a concern that I still have, that we're setting up this 4-mile route to be commercial the entire way. I know it doesn't have to be. When we get west, we can deny commercial to the west. That's my only concern.
I think that's a good concern, and I'm going to go back to what I first said when this was very first presentation about the phases and this commercial phase. I really thought that they were going to jump to commercial from the very beginning. That the heck with the property and R1, R2, and R3 and go right to commercial, but it's been a very nice transition, and we were aware of their intent on this commercial for, it's been several years now. And I would be comfortable too with, in the future, to say no. This is a limited commercial along this stretch. 4 miles would be too much. So I'm comfortable with it. Any other comments on that? Mr. Corton?
Mr. Chairman, I can just add some perspective to that if you like. With our future land use map that, we've had our last meeting, last week, to finalize the interim future land use map. Just across the street on State, we may have a commercial node for, 300 or 400 feet, and beyond that, the remainder to the west is designated to be residential. So the idea of a continuation is going to be contrary to what we're looking at with our future land use map. So you would already have a demarked zone, if you want to use that term, with respect to future commercial past states, other than a small little portion right there at that intersection. So if that may give you some comfort, you could use that. Otherwise, if you don't feel comfortable with a portion of that, vote as you will.
Thank you, Mr. Corton. Any other comments? George, Mr. Tews may have a question for you. If being none, we'll close public portion of this hearing, and I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Elkins.
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezone petition from Ag to R1, R2, R3, CC, LC, and GI as depicted in the application materials as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being of the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
Is there a second to that? Second. Then a second. Record that in Mr. Kovash. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Recommended to rezone.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, as part of the motion, I had put GI on there. GI is not part of the petition. So that is already included within the materials, but I'm rushing through late at night getting these motions together. So just for clarification on there is no GI as part of this petition request this morning.
I would also like to thank the commission for passing this. It's been a long couple of years, and you guys have all done a great job, and we appreciate it, so thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Item 2 on our regular agenda is a rezoning request. It's to consider a rezone petition from GI to GC for property described as Lot 1, Block 1, Energy Center First in Section 1 and 12, Township 139 North, Range 96 West. This time I'd ask the party presenting, please come forward.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Randy Sickler with Eviltoft Sickler Law Firm. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant Badlands Properties LLC, and with me is Quentin Kitson. He is also involved in this project. As stated in the application, the request is being made regard to Lot 1, Block 1 of Energy Center First Edition, which is currently zoned as GI. We are requesting that be changed to GC for the purposes of allowing a hotel to be constructed on that lot. We believe it would be consistent with some of the existing zoning in the neighborhood, as well as comments and intent from the city in the past as far as access points into the city, what would be visually appealing. Here we would have a hotel on the east end of the city where currently there are not. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
How many rooms would you have?
It's expected to be a 60-room hotel.
And how long would it take you to build this?
You sound like the owners. They're approximately 7 months.
And so what time period do you think you would have this complete?
We were hoping before the end of the year.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
To a restaurant?
No, this does not have a restaurant.
I asked that because I'm just thinking about the traffic.
Oh,
Traffic can be kind of tough on that street, I know.
right.
But 60 rooms isn't very big.
Any other comments or questions? And you refer to this as a hotel?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This time, I'd ask if there's anyone who'd like to make comment on this, please feel free to come forward. Any other comments from the commission? Mr. Corton, do you have any comments on this? Any recommendations?
I had met with both the applicants prior to submittal of the petition, and we went over it, and I feel comfortable with the rezone request. I think it's having some commercial on that side with respect to a hotel makes sense. Hopefully that will be what comes to fruition. I would anticipate that, but as a commission, you always got to be aware of that you are rezoning the property for all the allowable land uses and not just a specific thing.
Thank you, Mr. Corton. Any other questions or comments? This time we'll close public portion of this and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Nodland?
I move that the Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezone petition from GI to GC for property described as Lot 1, Block 1, Energy Center First, as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
Is there a second? Been a second? Mr. Kolbosh? Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Recommend to rezone request approved. Third item on the agenda is a rezone request to consider a rezone petition from AG to GC for property described in the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 28, Township 140 North, Range 96 West. This time I'd ask the party presenting, please come forward.
Morning, Commissioners. Walt Smith with Advanced Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. We're looking to rezone this property from AG to GC. The property is located directly north of the Cretin Funeral Home on Highway 22, across from Baker Hughes. The property to the south is commercial, as well as the property across the street is general commercial, so we feel that this fits the purpose and the zoning very well. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Smith? Mr. Jackson?
What's the proposed use?
He's putting offices on there, office complex in there.
Okay. Office complex could go into, I believe, LC, if not CC, correct?
With respect to your question, Commissioner Jackson, it could go LC. There is some limitations to it. It just depends. Medical and some very general professional offices can go in, but a broad term, probably CC would be a better one. If you were looking at, you didn't feel comfortable with the GC zoning designation.
Do you have a problem doing a CC instead of the GC?
I believe the applicant would prefer the GC, and I'd have to confer with him before I was to say that LC or CC would be acceptable, so.
Okay, the other question I have is, can you explain the odd shape of the tract? It appears that somebody has some kind of master plan in mind. I don't know what those lines mean.
Yes, those lines were, this lot was carved out as part of an original master plan that I believe Mr. Corte had planned for that area probably 20, 25 years ago. I mean, in fact, I think you may have worked on it, Mr. Jackson, with him, and so this particular lot was carved out, you know, to fit into that master plan in the big picture, whether, you know, that plan is going to move forward in that direction or not. But that's what that is, a loop road to the northwest there that is curving around, and that's where that funky shape is coming from, so that they do have access from that roadway, you know, possibly in the future. So, and I believe the lot was already of this shape when the gentleman bought it.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to add a comment to Mr. Smith. I haven't had a chance. I spoke to one of the proponents on this project a while back. I mentioned about the lot itself is a meets and bounds description. It was segregated from a larger piece, and that as staff, we would probably require before any building could happen that this would have to go through the planning process in order to validate the lot. But we would need to get a title report to go back to see when it was originally created, to see what the subdivision and zoning were at that time in order to make that determination. I just want you to be aware of that, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, do you know on that trail that stops at the southwest corner or halfway down that, does that trail go through that lot? Or what does that trail do?
I couldn't tell you the answer to that question. I mean, I've been out on the lot, and I don't know that the trail cuts across there and leads anywhere necessarily, but
Okay.
Honestly, I could not tell you what that trail is all about.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Any other questions? This time I'd ask if there's anyone in public who would like to make comment on this rezone request, please feel free to come forward. Any other comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
I just wonder if this request isn't premature. I think we've talked about not doing general commercial along the highway here in this half mile, and it doesn't sound like they need general commercial. Sounds like the CC would work if it's going to be an office building. But beyond that, you know, I just struggle doing these rezonings before we see some kind of, at least a master plan, some kind of a layout of the subdivision. We've got curved lines here, and Mr. Smith's right. I think this came from a 25 or 30-year-old preliminary effort, which probably has no bearing on what will happen out there now. So I'm prepared to offer a motion to deny, but perhaps we should just table it and ask the owner to come back when we know a little bit more about the ground.
I think that's a very good viewpoint. I think to validate, too, whether we want GC there and if it fits in the master plan, comprehensive plan, is something that should be done. And to see if the proposed usage would fit something other than GC. Any other comments? I would ask the party with consideration to them, Mr. Smith, would it be appropriate to give you more time to speak to the party you represent, that if something less than GC would be acceptable?
Yes, if the choice is denial or being tabled until we can look into that, then I agree. We'll table it till next time around, and we'll check on the zoning, and we'll look into the master plan as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Do we need to take formal action tabling?
I think so. At this time, then we'll close the public portion and ask for a motion.
Yes, my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, would be if you decide to table that, you just continue it until next month, and then leave the applicant an opportunity to get back to city staff if they're unable to make that meeting, or if they need additional time, not to be advertised. But other than that, that this would be tabled until next month. Or you want to just do it until a date uncertain, and then have the applicant contact me when they're ready to move forward, and then we would re-advertise it in case they would need additional time. It's your call, whichever way you want to go.
Okay, I'll ask someone for a motion.
I'll move that we table action on agenda item number 3 until some future meeting.
There's a second, and is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We will table this to some time in the future. And I have a question now for Mr. Corton on, we have been having some special meetings. Is it possible for some of these items to come up in 2 weeks? Is that enough time if it has to be advertised or not?
It would, for that meeting, it'd have to be advertised. I would have to look at it, because there's 2 requirements we have. We have the advertisement, 15 days in advance, we have to have that in the paper, which you have to back it a week before and a couple of days to get typeset. So, in essence, like today, for April's meeting, today's the cutoff for April's meeting, because it's a little bit earlier. And, it's just the way that things work with the paper and proper notification and the rest. And to let you know, and as you have told staff that we need to stick to those lines. So whatever I have by the end of the day today will be part of the agenda, and if it's not, you'll have to go in May.
Thank you, Mr.
Because we just need additional time, as you need it as well, to make those calls.
Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda today is a preliminary plat. It's to consider a preliminary plat for S&B subdivision and generally described in the northeast quarter of Section 32, Township 140 North, Range 96 West. At this time, I'd ask the party presenting, please come forward. And Mr. Tews, are you removing yourself from this item?
Yes. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, good morning, and thank you very much for having us here this morning. I'm Rick Luthold with Sanderson Stewart. We are representing the applicant on this particular project, S&B subdivision. We have provided some additional information, which I believe you have in regard to the preliminary plat and the actions from earlier meetings. Those things are an area-wide discussion that Will Ralph from our office had with city staff and the adjacent landowners. To give a depiction, there should be an aerial map like this that gives a general depiction of proposed road alignments in the area. There also is an additional map there with some colored areas that gives a general depiction of land uses with regard to those adjacent owners and the input that we had, so that you have some idea of what's occurring there. What we're focusing on is a 20-acre parcel at the corner of 21st and State. The design there includes just under 15 acres for residential multifamily, 278 units of apartments. We would begin construction as soon as we have approvals in place for that. First units would be ready for occupancy later this year, with final build-out taking about 15 months. It'd be midsummer next year with regard to final build-out on that. The applicant here today, John Van Meter, is here representing S&B with regard to any questions you might have in specific to the apartments themselves. I'd be happy to entertain any questions with regard to the development to the degree I can tackle those. We've provided Mr. Corton with final plat application, and materials will be coming in for that prior to the March 28th submittal date here for the next cycle. So we're ready to move forward with it and would ask for your favorable recommendation on the project.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Luthold?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This time I'd ask if there's anyone in the public who would like to make comment on this preliminary plat, please feel free to come forward. Being none, we'll close public hearing on this and ask if there's any questions from the commission. Any other comments? Being none, I'd ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for S&B subdivision as depicted in the application materials, as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Mr. Elkins. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, could I
Yes.
I had put a staff recommended condition, if you want to make your motion with respect to that, Jason, or if you do not, that's fine as well, but that staff recommended condition that prior to final plat approval, a development agreement shall be recommended for approval by the city engineer. We're working on a development agreement with the applicant.
Is that okay with you? Mr. Elkins?
That's fine.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Bovash?
I'm just looking at this. Is this going to fall in an area that would require park dedication?
That is, have they met with you? Is my understanding that they may have, so I'll
Unless
let
they
them.
talk to James, I'm not aware of it. I don't know if they can answer that, if they've talked to James at all.
This would be payment in lieu of. I don't believe my partner has met with the Parks Department at this point, no.
Okay, then I'm going to ask for a legal opinion here, so keep it clear.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this plat would be the first plat that would be approved under the new ordinance procedure that we have with respect to dedication of parkland. So I think I would encourage the applicant to meet with the park board, the park director, to confirm the manner in which the park district desires to go forward, whether that is through a payment in lieu or through dedication of parkland.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion there. I would recommend that maybe we alter the motion to put prior to final plat approval, the applicant shall provide a recommendation from the Parks Department to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission. That would address the situation, but it would have to be an amended motion at this point.
Was there someone who would like to make that amendment? Okay. Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? I'd just like to see that, make sure that's attached fully to the, when we come back to this, that we don't forget about it. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Any further discussion on the motion? If being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Item 5 on our agenda is a preliminary plat. It's a preliminary plat to consider a preliminary plat for Prairie Ridge subdivision and generally described in the southeast quarter of Section 34, Township 140 North, Range 96 West, enclosure number 5. At this time, I'd ask the party presenting, please come forward.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Chris Badesky. I'm here representing the applicant, Carl Best, and we're bringing before you today an application for preliminary plat for a 4.2 acre R2 zoned infill property on the east end of town at Elm and 10th Street. We're proposing a 7-lot subdivision at this time. 6 of the lots will propose to be developed as townhouses, and one of the lots, the interior lot, would then be developed as a multifamily, likely a duplex or a fourplex. It's R2, so the maximum number of units that's not townhouse can be 4. The development requires the construction of a public street connecting 10th and 11th. It will align with Elm, and water and sewer mains will be extended to serve the proposed homes. Parkland, Mr. Liebeck, another representative for Carl Best, has contacted, it's my understanding, the Parks Department, and has discussed with them the need for parkland, and it's my understanding that they have suggested a fee in lieu of parkland for this property. Pretty straightforward project. It's an infill, and here to answer any questions for you and request a favorable decision.
Any questions or comments this time?
Can you tell us a little bit about what the units are going to be like? Are they going to be rental units? Are you going to sell them?
They're going to be for sale. The townhouse homes, it's my understanding, I'm not the developer, but it's my understanding they will be sold. The townhouse units, there'll be a 2-car garage, 2-story, with the garage underneath, with a family room to the rear, and then the living area above on the 2nd floor. Okay. The lot widths, the width of the units are 25 to 32 feet wide.
Thank you.
The drawing you, the plat drawing you put up there now, what the relationship does that have to this? You just handed out this. You just handed this one out? Okay. Okay. That is what you're presenting now?
That's my understanding, that with townhouse lots, and correct me, Mr. Catan, if I'm wrong, is that you come in with one large lot, then you build the units, and then you come back for the division of the lots for townhouse units.
Thank you. Mr. Corton.
Mr. Chairman, I could just add that as part of the plat itself, I mentioned to the applicant, I believe it was yesterday, that Lot 5 would need to be widened to a minimum of 75 feet width in order to comply with the R2 designation requirements for a multifamily development on that lot. So they will factor that in. I would, depending on your recommendation, if you have a favorable recommendation, I suggest that you add that as a requirement for final plat approval.
Thank you, Mr. Corton.
And we understand that condition.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have one. What ties does Tom Langle have to this piece of property?
He's the current owner, and he's selling it to Carl Best. Correct.
Okay.
And I don't know if the transaction has taken place yet or not.
Well, the reason I asked that question is Tom Langle also has ownership of Heartland Village, and there's just a number of issues that should be addressed down there. But maybe that's in...
Is that the RV park?
That's the mobile home park,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, the property's for sale. Carl Best is the purchaser and the developer.
Okay.
So I think the only connection is he's selling the property.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Gulash?
the only question, and we've discussed this, I don't know that you've ever appeared in front of the park board. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I have not. Doug Liebeck, I believe, has made the connection, the contact to the park department.
I think he's probably talked to James, but I don't believe anybody's appeared in front of the board to actually vote on whether we're taking cash in lieu or not.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
just what I was
think
told.
that's happened. I don't have a problem with doing what we did in the last one and going ahead with this, but making sure that they appear before we see the next, a final plat or anything like that. I think you're right. I think that's what the discussions were, cash in lieu, but I think we need to make sure that I'm only one person, that that's the way the board wants to go. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Gulash. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. This time, it's on short notice, we have received a handout of printed comments on the proposed Prairie Ridge addition signed by Mr. Bob Keel. We'll make that part of the record. And this time we'd ask if there's anyone else in the public who would like to make comment, please feel free to step forward.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, I just wanted to say that I'm not representing anyone except my wife, maybe, in terms of that letter. Others are here in the group, and I have to leave, unfortunately, so I'll leave the hard work to them, but I just wanted to say I am concerned about primarily the density of that development. And as my letter says, I've lived there for a long time, and that land has always been, well, empty, pretty much on the edge of town until recent years. It's been closed in, so it's entirely surrounded by single-family dwellings. Well, the cemetery is close, but so I'm personally concerned just about the density of the area. I would like to see it a little bit less dense than it's planned. If the plan that I've seen is the same as that, I can't tell for sure. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keel.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
If I could, I got another call from someone also asking about density, and before we get any more comments, I wonder if we should have Mr. Curtin explain what our code says about density in R2 zoning. Would that be helpful to everybody if we had that information?
That'd be fine.
With respect to the question, the density for the R2 district, you're allowed to, it's based upon lot size, and the density is factored in for 7,000 square feet for the first unit, and the next three at 3,000 square feet if you want to have a fourplex or a triplex or something of that nature, to a maximum of 4 units on a lot, which in essence would be 16,000 square feet. The exception to the rule for that one would be if you wanted to build a townhouse. If you want to build a townhouse, the code allows an applicant to build up to 10 units in a townhouse design. A townhouse design is a design in which you have a 2-hour firewall, no units above you between from the foundation going up through the roof line. We do allow an exception for townhouses. I'm not exactly sure how that provision ever came into play, but it allows you to have up to 10 units on a lot as long as it's a townhouse design. And that same density standard would come to play, 7,000 for the first, and then each additional unit up to 10, the second through 10 would be at 3,000. So if I'm doing my math right, that would be 27, so you'd be looking at, to do a 10-plex, which would be 10 townhouse units, you would have to have 34,000 square feet or greater in order to build that. So that gives you an idea in the density for it. So the density is a direct relation to the lot size. And I don't know if I need to add to that. That essentially was what people ask for when they're looking at the R2 district. It does allow single family, or a duplex, or a triplex, but it's still based upon the first unit's at 7,000, and each subsequent unit is at 3,000 square feet.
Is that clear? I have a question. For the proposed buildings you'd put on this property, you'd have all off-street indoor parking, garages?
That is correct, that all the lots will propose to have a two-car garage with a two-car driveway attached to them.
Thank you.
And it's a 25-foot setback to the face of the garage from the property line.
Any other comments or questions? And at this time, I'd ask if there's anyone else in the public who would like to make comment, please feel free to come forward.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Don Briggemeyer, a property owner next to this proposed development. And I realize that the city of Dickinson needs housing. I think my concern, and probably the concern of the other adjoining single-family housing property owners, is the density that if, and I can't see his plan, but the one that I have looks like it's calling for 39 units. One condo lot is kind of set back in what one could consider sort of kind of an alley-like arrangement, which I don't see how that really aligns up with, you know, emergency responders, fire, ambulance, and so on, having easy access to that. Could I turn your okay. I guess it is basically the same as what I'm looking at. So that condo area here looks not that terribly workable to me from that kind of a safety issue. And so in order to lessen the density and make this a little more palatable to the people who already live around that area, I handed out another sheet with kind of a crude drawing, I suppose, of a 23-unit development. I don't know what the commissioners think of that we could lessen the impact maybe by half onto the surrounding area, people who have already lived there in their single-family units for 20 to 30 years, and lessen the number of people coming into the area. With the 39-unit thing, I could see like maybe 160 people suddenly being put into this quiet residential area. And we could probably cut that in half with a different proposal like what I handed out to you gentlemen earlier. And likewise with the traffic of vehicles, one could probably assume that with the 39 units, there could easily be 70 more vehicles coming and going into this area every day, whereas we could probably reduce that in half if we could come up with a compromise plan that could be more palatable to the people who already live in the surrounding R1 area with, if the developer was, you know, amenable to looking at the concerns of the surrounding area and to make it blend in a little better with what's already there. And of course, with lesser units, there's lesser traffic flow, lesser safety hazards, because there would, with this unit, I see that we have driveways backing out onto 10th Street and driveways backing out onto 11th Street. 11th Street is, or always has been, a quiet residential street, ending at Gum on the east and Alder on the west, so it really doesn't go anywhere in particular. 10th is more of a through street, but that presents some traffic safety issues if you have people backing out onto those streets, whereas in a scaled back proposal, all driveways could be on the new through street that continues from Elm up to 11th, and therefore not have any impact on 11th Street or 10th Street. So if the commission was, I don't know what your, what's the word I'm looking for here? If you would be more willing to look at a scaled back development and pass on that rather than the one that has been presented to you, I think that would be more acceptable to the people who are already living in the area in their single-family dwellings. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Brigmeyer. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who'd like to make comment. Please feel free to come forward.
Good morning. My name is Chris Bruggemeyer. I'm the wife of Don, who just spoke. And I just wanted to add my approval to the letter that Bob Keogh wrote. My husband and I have talked with him, and we read through his comments for you, and we wholeheartedly agree with everything that he wrote. And I also wanted to say that I thought it was interesting in the Sunday paper, in the Progress edition, there was one small article about Dickinson building houses and such, and a quote from there was that the city was concerned about curb appeal. And when we look at this particular drawing, honestly, what I see are lots of driveways and very little green space, very little front yard. I don't see curb appeal at all. And the alternate plan that my husband sketched out, just to give you another thing to think about, it would allow for more curb appeal, we think, too. So that's just another thing for you to consider. Thank you.
Ms. Bruggemeyer. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make public comment. Please feel free to come forward.
Thank you. I'm Jim Provotsky. I live on 1053 Dell, which is west of it, of this subdivision. I feel that it's such high density, it's going to be a traffic issue. The grade coming off of that, our street at the south end of Dell, where it hits 10th, is pretty steep already, and they have that same issue. If they don't, they'd have to move major dirt to lessen the grade coming down to 10th, which would create a traffic hazard in the winter, which it does for us. And as far as the park and green space, I hope the park board would look at making sure that instead of taking money, maybe make sure they have some green space. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Probowski. If there's anyone else who would like to make comment, please feel free to come forward.
Good morning. My name is Kent Mortensen. I live at 885 11th Street East, kind of adjacent, kind of right on 11th Street, kind of on the northeast corner of this property that's being proposed. In looking at the preliminary drawing too, to kind of reiterate is the multiple number of driveways. I'm a little concerned about, last 3 winters, we've had snow. What are they going to do for snow removal, snow placement, and so forth on these townhouses? The driveways appear to be very, like, one right after another, so I don't know what the plan would be as far as an approval from the city public works on how are they going to clean snow within that area. And Mr. Corton, maybe you have a better understanding on when we build in regards to green space, is there going to be a requirement to plant trees? Okay. I don't see any area hardly for this development to even plant trees. And kind of roughly sketching out and looking at the adjacent property lines, you know, I have a hard time with the density as well. And I'm thinking with the people on Dell and using those same property lines, as far as, you know, whether the new proposed idea is to make a profit or gain or whatever monetarily, I don't see why there could not be single-family dwelling units with the similar lot lines coming off of Dell and even using the Fir Avenue property lines, whether it's twin homes, something that's going to be more pleasing to the eye, such as the curb appeal that was mentioned. To come in well after the fact, after this neighborhood has been so developed, and to put in these type of units, I think it's going to almost depreciate the value and the appeal of the properties around this area if we were to try to sell. And I would almost like to ask for the city assessor to give us a proper definition of what typically happens when you've got properties such as this coming in. What's this going to do to my property? What's it going to do? So those are some of the concerns that I would have as the property owner. You know, it's going to be directly affected by this, by this adjoining property or development. The one sketch that I have also, it's really fine, and I guess I can't see it, but I'm concerned as being on the north side of 11th Street. If you haven't driven by this area, it is a hilltop, and right now it is grass. And in the springtime, when we get snow runoff, whatever, when you get hard rains, 11th Street is actually kind of, it's not a real even street, it has somewhat of a crown, but we do get typically the runoff on the north side of 11th Street. So I'm kind of concerned in regards to the hard surface that's going to go into this area. As far as my understanding is, on the last meeting that I watched, is the driveways are going to be stepped up to kind of go with the hill. It's not going to be graded down, it's not going to be dropped elevation-wise, which means with the hard surface, we're going to have a lot of rapid runoff. Now, the storm drains that we have are down over on Gum and then way over on the other end of 11th Street. I currently get a lot of water that runs, like I said, across 11th Street. It runs down, and thank God I've got grass to kind of absorb most of that moisture. But now I'm going to be concerned about the runoff that's going to affect me now on the north side of 11th Street. I would like to see more green space, more units or homes to where people can actually put downspouts and run water into their properties under their grass. Townhouses and condos is not going to meet that other than in the backyards. So that is a concern that I do have. So just please take that into consideration. It is nice to see we got a lot of representation. There's a lot of people here from the neighborhood that probably are not going to speak. But we all kind of share kind of the same concern in regards to the type of housing that's going to be provided. Like I say, this is considered, it's being called a development. I'm going to say it's a neighborhood enhancement. And if it should be an enhancement, it should kind of fit and conform to the rest of the area. The development to me is a wide open area where you're going to come in and put in new development as you're building and going outward. This has all been here. So I do oppose the proposed condos and townhouse concept. I much more would prefer to see like a twin home type development that's over on 12th Street and 10th Avenue East. Single family units. Because I am concerned about number of vehicle traffic that's going to increase in the area. We do got a lot of families with small kids. This is going to dramatically change. And I don't think we're ready for it. People are already kind of talking, possibly moving from the area because of this development. This is just not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. This time, is there anyone else who would like to make comment?
Good morning, Chairman and Commission. My name is John Kempenick. I live on Dell Avenue. What you don't see on this plot map and stuff is on the west side of Dell, there's a row of single-family homes. Right next to that is Pioneer Haven. So we're going to be, Dell Avenue is going to be sandwiched between two apartment-type complexes and stuff. So, and this is for single-family dwellings up there. So everything that's been said, I do agree with. I do have concerns on how they're going to come in and develop this area. Are they going to level the whole hill? We heard all through the winter about, you know, erosion and stuff, the wind blowing, and this is sandy area. And so the neighbors, you know, mainly on the east side of this property, are probably going to have their yards filled with sand if this is developing over the winter months and stuff. The gentleman mentioned about, you know, water moving down these hills and stuff like that, and it is a hill out there, so, I mean, there are concerns, you know, and we're talking about public health, safety, those things, that's part of this. So, I don't know what is planned. Is it like, are they low-income townhouses, or what are they, you know, what kind of values are going to be placed on these things and stuff? So that's another concern, you know, that we have and stuff up in that neighborhood. So I agree with what's been said, and I hope that as a commission, you know, make some good decisions and stuff. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knappe. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment? Please feel free to come forward.
Commission, my name is Arvin Herner. I live on Fur Avenue, right backyard of this new proposed development. And I just wanted to reiterate, most of the comments that I want to make have already been made. So I just wanted to maybe just save some time and show that I do agree with all the comments that have been made. The neighborhood has, as a whole, has really agreed with all the comments that have been made, and maybe just to save time, to show a show of hands who all agrees with these comments, maybe other than having everyone come up and, you know, maybe in essence of saving time. Anyone in the neighborhood is here with this proposed change?
Arvid,
Yep.
Arvid, no.
Okay, I just want to show you as all hands I wanted.
We're not here to save time.
Okay.
We're here to allow everybody to make comment if they choose.
Fine, okay. I just want to reiterate my support of everything that's been made. I agree with all the comments that have been made by the residents of the area, and I just want to show my support also of that, and that maybe a different plan would fit in better with the neighborhood. Just want to show my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herner. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment. Please feel free to come forward. If being none, is there any comments from the commission? Yes, sir.
Can I respond?
You may respond.
I do appreciate all the comments, and I do understand the surrounding area is a single-family neighborhood, but unfortunately, this lot is zoned R2. We do have a multifamily development to the west. I believe one gentleman mentioned that, west of Dell. So it's not the only multifamily development in the area. But just to make it very clear, we are not asking for any variances. We are not asking for any deviations. Everything will be built per the City of Dickinson codes. So we're not asking for any special treatment here at all. We've constructed the roads. We actually started 14 revisions ago with 55 units, and we've substantially reduced the number of units that is being proposed to you today. So we started with a concept of a private looped road coming off 11th, private street, and it's really been scaled down with a public street through it. Driveways backing in, these are some of the comments. we know all the homes in that area, the driveways do back into the public streets. And they're going to use about 10th Street. It is a wider street, so that will help with those cars backing out of the driveways into 10th. And then on the large condo lot, that comment has come up about safety and the turning potential of emergency vehicles, and there will be a need for a turnaround at the end of that driveway. That's the lot 5. That's the interior lot. We tried to have all the lots front public streets, but it is a very odd-shaped lot, so there would have to be a turnaround on the end of that driveway for emergency vehicles. The lot widths, the code requires the lot width for a townhouse to be 25 feet. That's the minimum width, and that's what we're proposing for a majority of these. Some of them may be wider, up to 32 feet, because just the layout of the lots, we are allowed to make some of the units a little bit bigger to have some diversity. That's about it. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your clarification. Are there any comments from the commissioner? Being none, I'll close the public portion of this hearing. At this time, I'd ask if Mr. Gorton has a recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I can go through and address some of the issues that have been brought forth thus far. With respect to curb appeal and the landscape in an open space, this falls under our landscape ordinance required. This is the same standards we have for single family, would apply also for multifamily in this zone, and it requires a 15-foot landscape buffer along the street frontage, which this one would have it in the interior, and then also 11th and 10th Avenue, 10th Street as well. And then every 500 square feet of that would require a minimum of one tree. With that, I would hope and anticipate that the remainder of the lot would be landscaped as well, but per our code, they're not required to do so. I would anticipate that as part of their project. The multiple driveways in relation to the properties on 10th Street, that falls under a development code. We've allowed driveways along 10th Street. We try to limit those, so it would be left up to the city engineer to make a call. We would probably require joint access between two of the houses in order to limit the driveway access on 10th, to try to make it so we have a better flow instead of having so many curb cuts allowed with that. But we'll have to review that at building permit stage. The stormwater issue will be reviewed as part of the plat before any building permits are done. We'll look at their grading plan and make sure that it conforms to our standards, and also do the inspections for that as well. I'm not sure if they're going to grade, if they're going to lower the side, or are they going to build within the existing grade and have daylight basements and the rest. We'll have to wait and see. But we have development standards that covers that, so we'll ensure that as best we can. The traffic that being generated, I would anticipate the majority of it would come off of 10th Street, just due to that being a major collector. I don't see a significant amount going on 11th Street. It would be kind of a bypass area. It is required to have that in order to provide two access points within that for emergency services, so that's why we recommended a connection street to go through that. Let's see. The one option that some of the people brought up, and I would be much in favor of, would be if the applicant wanted to consider a PUD. We already have the existing zoning with that. Maybe some of these issues can be addressed if they wanted to consider that, but they're proposing to do this as a standard plat. And with a plat, you would have to have conditions that are directly proportional to what has been submitted. And in this case, a lot of the building design and what we're going to have is we're not sure. And you normally don't go into those details on a preliminary plat or even a final plat. That would be involved at the time of building permit issuance. Based upon that, I've went back and forth on it. It's unfortunate for the neighborhood that you have in the existing R2 zone, an island within your residential area. I understand it's been that way for a long period of time. The application, I've met with them on several occasions. Their initial proposal, they had proposed significantly more units, and after several revisions, it has been limited to what they're proposing today. So as staff, I've done my part to try to make sure that it's as compatible as it can be with the existing neighborhood. You can make an assumption that a 3.42 acre lot, R2 in today's economy, would be reasonably cut up. You're not going to just develop 10 townhouses on it in today's market. I think a reasonable expectation would be that they would come in and subdivide the property, similar to what they have done. It follows along with our platting requirements, and I know that it's a remnant piece. It will increase the density, but based upon the criteria we have in the preliminary plat criteria or final, I would need to recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Corton. This time I'd ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask
Mr.
Mr.
Jackson.
Corton
Yeah.
another question here?
Yes, you may.
You mentioned the option of doing a PUD. If the developer was willing to do that, can you give us an example of some of the things that we might address in the PUD?
Well, what we could do is, they are limited on the way that, under our current development standards, they can configure the townhouses or a fourplex based upon our code. If you do a PUD, they can maybe cluster it, get it away, maybe push it towards the center, and then provide some additional open space around the perimeter, which would make it a little more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Also, with that, you could require some additional buffering or standards for that. Require an opaque fence to be placed. There's no requirement that they have to do that. They may do that as part of their development anyway, but you could require that to provide some additional screening from the adjoining property. But what they could do is cluster it, make it closer together with the same density or less density, and make it so that you would have along the perimeter a little more open space, a little more buffering to soften the higher intensity use. That's one of the issues that you could do.
So you're saying we may still end up with 39 units, but just configured differently to...
Correct.
Is that something you consider?
Yes, you may.
Unfortunately, I can't answer that question. We would likely stay with the same number of units. I can't speak for the applicant if they'd be interested in going through a PUD, because it's going to lengthen the time of the review process, and they would like to construct this summer. We're going to keep the same number of units. I don't know if there's an incentive to go through a PUD process, unfortunately. You sure could, I guess, ask for some conditions, and I sure can pass them on. I realize you can't condition development standards at this level, but sure could pass on the comments.
I think it'd be worthwhile, because I think there are some incentives to do a PUD.
And I took all the notes of all the comments that was commented on.
Thank
You know, Mr. Chairman,
you. Mr. Jackson.
I think everybody understands this, but the problem we have before us is that they're in compliance with everything. It's already zoned. If they were standing before us today asking for rezoning from R1 to R2, I have a hunch we probably wouldn't look favorably on that in this neighborhood. But it's already zoned R2. It has been, I think, for 20 or 30 years. I think it's been that long. And they're in compliance with everything. So I'm not sure on what basis we would deny this. I don't blame the neighborhood for feeling the way it does at all. Developer is concerned about the time frame it would take for a PUD processing. Can you comment on that?
With respect to your question, Commissioner Jackson, the process would, in essence, we'd have to re-advertise and they would need to go through the same process we did we would have to do for a rezoning. That would be 1 through the Planning Commission, and then 2 at the City Commission level. So you're looking at, essentially delaying this project a month, maybe 2, depending on how quickly they can get their application in.
Because they have another couple months as it stands with the current process, correct? 6 weeks, probably?
With this one, they would need to submit a final plat if, let's say, with the assumption that the commission today recommended approval with whatever conditions you may attach, they could submit their final plat application, get on the next agenda item, and then from there, you have one meeting with Planning Commission on the final plat. If you approve that, then it goes to City Commission, you would have one more. So, in essence, the next step would be probably a month and a half to 2 months until the final approval by City Commission, if they move forward at their current rate.
Ed, would we be wise to table this request until they sat down and met with you and Sean in regards to the PUD or the concerns we have?
For me, and I've let you know that for a long time, I'm very much in favor of PUDs because you're able to attach conditions that you feel are necessary to make a project. If you feel a project is worthy and it's just the standard development regulations do not meet everything that you would feel comfortable with, it allows you some additional ability to place conditions on it. Otherwise, you would have to either accept it or deny it, such as the proposal that we have in front of us today. I'm in favor of it. Due to the way the lot is, I don't know how much they're going to be able to be able to provide additional buffering for the neighbors. I would think that they're going to do some grading as part of that you could, depending on where you want to go, you could require the additional soils to have a landscape berm or, require an opaque fence to provide that, push it in a little bit so that you have a more condensed or more cluster dwelling units, and then maybe we could look at realigning the road if it was more centrally located, that maybe it doesn't have to be that particular road alignment. I'd have to discuss that in detail with the city engineer. So, but with respect to your question, it's your call, Commissioner Elkins. If you feel comfortable with it, you can make a decision. If you do not and you want to pursue this avenue, you could also table it and have them come back, have them meet with staff and before you make a decision with respect to a PUD. It's your call.
I guess why I'm asking that is because I don't know that the developer himself really understands. I mean, we have somebody here really in regards representing the developer, but the developer may or may not honor that request. I mean, we can make it a condition.
That is correct.
I think it's, Mr. Nodland? You have a comment?
I have a question to Mr. Cordon, and I know no one here probably could really answer that question, but, you said that 20, 30 years ago, Mr. Jackson said probably this was zoned R2. Why would somebody have put an R2 in the middle of all the R1s? Have you ever, any question? Any thoughts?
I'll look in my crystal ball, Commissioner Nodland, but I would anticipate that, 20, 30 years ago, just the approval process and how we looked at zoning was different from what we do today. We're a lot, to commend you as a commission, you look at things more stringently and you look at it with a greater respect holistically. Maybe back then it was viewed differently. You came in, rezoned it. Of course, at the time, I'm not sure when this rezoning happened. There may have been additional R2 that subsequent to this have been slowly rezoned to R1 to create the neighborhood around it. I'm not sure how the development pattern came about. There may have been an expectation at the time to have a big apartment there and with respect to it, but I can't comment on it. Wasn't here at the time.
Mr.
Nodland, go ahead.
The landscape of it, the terrain of it, would that have anything to do with it? I mean, there seems to be quite a few comments today about that issue.
I mean, it's a nice...
That seems to be a real issue with me.
Right. It's a nice, I mean, you have a nice knob that's with that, and if you came through as a PUD, like I'm talking about clustering, you could, we could look at the PUD ordinance, see if we could allow a concentration of development and do it more of a condo effect on the top of the hill in which you can get some views, and then the other portions around the perimeter of it, allow that as open space. And maybe that was the original concept of it, to have an apartment complex in the center and then the rest of it to be kind of open space. I'm not sure that would make sense as a developer's perspective if I was thrown on that hat today.
Thank you.
I think the idea of a PUD is excellent. I think there's incentive to do that for the developer. Maybe the developer doesn't realize it, but it seems to be that our planner realizes it, and it would probably enhance the neighborhood, and I think it would satisfy some concerns of the citizens that live around there. But at this point in time, everything they've asked for is in compliance. There's been no objection from the engineering department as far as to where the road's going. They seem comfortable with it so far, that it can be done, and it's allowed in that particular zone. I would, at this point, it would be hard pressed to find a reason to deny, other than the fact that they haven't gotten agreement with the Park District on this property and on the development. But this time I'd ask for a motion.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Kohler?
One option you may have, this matter is on for a preliminary plat. It does have to come back for a final plat before approval. You may wish to approve the preliminary and establish as a condition that the developer meet with Mr. Corton to discuss the possibility of a PUD and whether that would be an amenable solution to the parties.
Thank you. I think that'd be an excellent solution as opposed to tabling it. And also along with that condition that they have to, like we did the prior, they have to meet with Parks. There have to be an agreement before it would go to final. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move.
Mr. Jackson.
I'll move that we approve the preliminary plat, but that we ask the developer to consider a PUD development prior to bringing in a final plat.
I'll second.
And they have to meet, they have to come to an agreement with the park. Would you make that?
Plus satisfy the park requirements.
Thank you. Is that okay with you, Mr. Toots?
I'll second.
All right. Motion second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
I'd like to ask the developer to look at the PUD really hard. I think the neighbors have to understand, though, at least have expectations right, that, you know, I don't think a PUD is going to bring this to where you want it. I think it can move it that direction, but just so our expectations are in place. But I do think a PUD would help the situation a good deal. So we want you to look at that pretty hard.
No, I'll allow you to make a comment. We're in discussion, so I'll let you make a comment if it helps our discussion.
Sure, and I totally understand. I've been developing property as a civil engineer for 20-plus years, and I do understand PUDs are a very good tool for properties like this, so I'll definitely discuss it with the applicant and see, and Mr. Kadon, see if we can come up with something. It's just a weird-shaped lot, so we might be able to come up with something better. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate all the comments that the citizens have made, and they come to a realization that, you know, this property is zoned for what they would like to do. Sometimes, if you like the view, you should buy it, or if you don't like the view, you should buy it and change it. But it's one of those hard realizations that's been sitting there, and I know it's over 25 years ago that was zoned, you know, a long time ago that was zoned R2. So, any other discussion? If being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Nolan object. Thank you. One. Thank you very much.
Yep.
At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Time, we have item 6 on our regular agenda, a rezoning request. To consider a rezone petition from AG to R3 for property described as described in the south half of the southeast quarter of Section 29, Township 140 North, Range 96 West. And it's my understanding at this time Mr. Tooze has an interest in this, and he's going to not include himself in this discussion. This time I'd ask the party presenting, please feel free to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Jeff Schaumlin with Arista Development. Before you today is a request to rezone 9.65 acres. This is a tract of land which I think this Commission has reviewed before, known as the 21st Street development. Past discussions have had it at, I believe, more dense zoning classification with some industrial and commercial applications. As you know, 21st Street, west of State, will be a major arterial or collector road for the city, and we believe the multifamily zoning is appropriate. So we're respectfully requesting your approval today and would be glad to address any questions you may have.
Any questions at this time for Mr. Schaumlin?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to hear more about the project. How many units, what kind of units? Just tell us more about the project.
Yes, sir. The project is designed to be 4 buildings totaling 144 units. We build and have built multifamily structures in North Dakota, in Fargo, Moorhead, Williston, North Dakota. We pride ourselves on market rate rental with amenities, washers and dryers in each room, oversized garage so that you don't have a sea of oversized trucks on the site, and some architectural details. So the site as designed is intended to support 4 structures.
Mr. Elkin.
Does Arista Development have an interest in the surrounding properties here?
We do not have an interest in the surrounding properties. However, we have been in discussions and coordination with the adjacent owner, I believe on your agenda, who is item number 19, Clear Creek Edition, who owns the property on the west and north, or is purchasing the property on the west and north of this. We're in ongoing discussions and have been collaborating through the whole process. So we're very familiar with one another's needs and on the same page with one another.
And the reason I ask that is I firmly believe that this whole piece of property should be platted, master platted, so at least we can have some idea as to what's happening here.
If I could respond, Mr. Chairman, the plat for our property, the sketch plat for our property is under number 14, and the adjacent property sketch plat is under number 19, so they are being considered here tonight. I believe maybe Mr. Corton can address that more specifically.
Mr. Cortano, would you like to make comment on that at this time then?
Yes, that is true. The applicant is going through both a concurrent process for approval, one of rezoning, and then going through the sketch plat for that. Since it's a sketch plat, it's not part of this. We put all the sketch plats together normally as part of our agenda items. So the application that we have, the Unified Development application for the rezone, shows the proposed lot being split into 2 lots, and then also the rezoning for an R3 over the entire acreage of it.
Over all of this, Ed, I'm talking about what's outside the boundaries?
Just the 9 acres. There is a sketch plat for the remainder piece that you see on that depiction. If I recall right, I think it's like 46 acres or something left over, and that is a sketch plat as well. They are just going to keep that all as one large piece of property, and then they are going to come back at a later date to, my understanding, to rezone it to R3.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Mr. Chalmers.
If I might, the tract that is before you today for the rezoning is bounded on the east, if you've been out to that area, by the wood line. It extends back to the power line and over towards the wellhead. So there is a natural boundary, I think, on this particular property. It doesn't extend all the way to the north, as you may be concerned about. It's just the frontage on that 21st.
And I see that very clearly on this depiction here. I guess I would have liked to have seen more of what is surrounding this, or what's proposed. That's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
I have the same concerns that Mr. Elkins does. You know, I'm hearing it said that we've got two pieces of ground. I realize we've only got one on this agenda item, but we have to, I think, look at the two together. So we've got a piece of ground that's 2,000 feet by, what is it, 1,200 or something like that. And there are going to be no dedicated streets, no plan for any park, nothing of the sort. Is that what I'm hearing? We'll have no dedicated streets in this tract of land?
Do you have a proposed drawing of what you plan on actually putting in there?
I do not. I do have for the adjacent land to your question, so I will pass it to the city planner. if I may.
I have that right here. It's, all adjacent land is looking at R3. That's what you're looking at here. Okay.
To answer your question, Commissioner Jackson, they're proposing two lots. The access point will be granted via 21st Street West. They are required to provide a dedication of 75 feet from the center line of the road. This is going to be a unified development. It was my understanding, they were going to do this all as one apartment complex. They may decide to do it as two apartment complexes, one in each lot. So there wouldn't be, if it's unified or if it's a one development on a project, then in essence, you don't have a dedicated road unless there's a dedicated road that is necessary for connection further to the north. The city engineer and myself, we looked at the property. We didn't see a need to have a dedicated road or a dedicated road extension through the subject property. I needed, on the piece to the west, along the western boundary, that area is still up in question, and prior to preliminary plat, we'll make a decision, the city engineer and myself, if a dedicated road should be along the western perimeter of the adjacent property in order to connect to the properties to the north. I would anticipate that we would probably require that, but not the property that we're seeing at this point.
Drawing he gave us.
Along here.
He gave you a drawing over there.
And then this is a drawing, a proposal of the applicant to the west. They are looking at doing a complex, an apartment complex, all within that one lot, the remaining one lot piece.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nadlin.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Corton, if I may ask, so I'm trying to put the two together. All of this is R3, is looking at R3?
The applicant on the one petition that we're talking about right now, yes, the 9 acres, the applicant already talked about is R3. The piece to the, directly to the west and northwest that you see, the larger piece, they are proposing to have R3 as well. They didn't get their application in on time. They're coming through with a sketch plat. Just to give you an idea of what they're proposing, in essence, it's going to be one big large lot, and then they're going to come back, I believe, probably next month with a rezone request from Ag to R3 on that piece. So to answer your question, I think what you're trying to do is piece together this with respect to the prior developments. Yes, this corridor is going to have a significant amount of R3 designation, or at least that's proposed. The question for you is how much do you feel comfortable with that area? You know, as staff's perspective, along State and along 21st, at least the properties that are connecting and are abutting it, it makes sense if you're going to have a higher density to have that along a major road. further back, then it should transition into an R2 or an R1 destination. Based upon the proposals that have been submitted or already in the process of being approved, this area, that brings up a question: how much R3 should we allow in that particular corridor? You could add up the numbers, and I haven't done it specifically just for these projects. I had a number here of potentially around the area, and you're looking at a tremendous amount of R3 units that, from just September on to through today's items, you potentially could be looking at 3,200 apartment dwelling units throughout the city and just outside the city as well. That's not just this area, that's total cumulative around the city, which is a significant number. The question arises, how much is too much with the allocation with respect to where we see our city at 36,000 or somewhere thereof? We're still in the process of determining what we think the city will be in 5 to 10 years. How much apartment allocation should we have? And we haven't got to that part yet on the comp plan. Probably in the next 2 months, we should have a good feel of what we feel the total number of apartments compared to single-family allocation should be. At this point, I don't know what that will be. So that's a question for you to discuss and debate as well.
If I may, that was the question I was going to add, the ratio of single-family to R3.
And to answer your question, those go anywhere between 60 to 75%. I think for a healthy economy, probably 70%, between 65 and 70% should be single family. The remainder can be duplexes and then multifamily. If you were, just to give you an idea, if we were a resort community or a university town, you would want to have more apartments because you have more singles, you have a transitory population. If you're, a typical community that has a good workforce, that is a regional economic attractor, a regional community, then probably a more stable 65 to 70% single-family ratio, and then the remainder could be multifamily. That's what I would anticipate that we'll probably come up with as part of our comprehensive plan.
Mr. Elkins.
Chairman, are these apartments, or the potential for these apartments, are they taken into consideration in that number, that 3,200 number?
Yes.
You're looking at about 600 plus potential apartments in this whole development. And Braxton right across the street with 280.
Yeah, I think that number added up just in that general vicinity, potentially around 1,200. I haven't figured that out. It just depends on how the other developments come to play, for the board to consider.
Mr. Schaumann, you hear these comments. How soon do you think, if this was approved and moved forward, that you would have these apartments completed?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, it's our hope to have infrastructure extended at the soonest possibility, which, depending on entitlements, would likely be in the June timeframe, and to begin construction immediately thereafter. So we would hope by the end of the year, early spring, to be completed on this site.
Because at some point in time, you realize these comments that we are going to have an enormous amount of R3, a lot of apartments, a lot of R3 approved, and there's going to come a point in time when is someone going to complete them or not, and are more going to get approved or not. So I think the consideration is that how soon they would get built. And I think it addressed Mr. Elkins' consideration too, that this whole plot of land, that what was going to happen to the rest of it, and I think his question was answered about that whole surrounding area was proposed to R3. And I figured also somewhere in number between 600 and 700 units in that piece of property alone, if that moved forward.
Yeah, certainly, apart from the action on the adjacent property and how far north that R3 line extends, I think the philosophy that multifamily should be on a busy corridor still applies for our particular parcel, which is before you today, would be our respectful request.
Thank you, Mr. Schaumann. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Nahman.
Mr. Chairman, and if I may ask again, Ed, so you said 3,200 units roughly? And so how many people are we talking? What's your projections on, what do we project?
With respect to your question, I think from the last census, the 2010 census, if I recall right, I think for apartments, the density for that, for a dwelling unit is like 1.8 people. I think that that's probably underestimated. That's kind of an average that they kind of piece together. But that was based upon the census. I would lean more towards, in the per dwelling is probably 2 to 2.5. With respect to today's economy and today's lack of housing that we have. Many people double up, and you hear stories about that all the time. So at least 2. So if you multiplied that factor by 3,200 units, that potentially could happen. At least these are proposed. And that doesn't mean everyone will happen. That doesn't mean that it will happen to that extent. It may be higher, maybe lower. But if you multiply it, 2 people per dwelling unit, you're looking at, 6,400 population. But if you factor in, this would be over a period of time, a build-out of probably 5-6 years in order to accommodate that. All those units couldn't be built in 1 year under today's development.
That was my next comment, is I've only been on this board 3 months. But when we ask people, when are you going to build these projects, or build these, they say they're going to get them done by the end of this year or next year.
Right.
I'm probably a little bit outdated here in my age, but I cannot believe with as slow as units have been being built so far since we started this growth in Dickinson, that any of these people can possibly get these built that fast. And I'm glad to hear you say 5 years, because that looks more reasonable to me. I mean, we've approved so many units, and they're not getting built. And when I talk to contractors and talk to people, contractors would like to come here, but everybody has a housing problem. The contractors themselves have a housing problem. I think our biggest problem is, I'm not against development, but our biggest problem is, where are we going to get the contractors to build all that we need to build that everybody's talking about? We're not alone. All the towns around us and the whole western North Dakota has got the same situation. So my problem is, and I know I'm getting the guy that's a Mr. No, but my problem is I need to, somebody has to show me the need and some kind of a progress that has some controlled growth of how many we build and how many we approve to build in time. It just seems like it's let's hurry up and develop this, let's buy this land, let's get this done as fast as we can, so we can make a quick buck. And I'm sorry to say that. That's the feeling I get from so many people that call me. And let's get something built. And I just need some help in proving to me that we need to continue to approve all these until more of these are built and people come in and we see people move into them. I know there's a need for them, and I know I'm asking you a large question here.
Well, I can answer some of that, and I'll just give you some facts, and then from there you draw the conclusions that you may. Last year, I think we had about 2,000 units, I think it was like 198 for the year, that were multifamily. That was built. I mean, last year was our first big explosive year that I would call for apartments. Just this year, you have Power Fuels in the Cook's third edition. They are significantly moving forward on their project. I would anticipate probably completing, they're doing it all at one time. They've brought in a crew, and that's all they're doing is that particular project. Probably 4 months, 4 to 5 months, they'll have probably all those dwelling units up. So they'll have 168. Will that go into the population that we have now? No, because it's just going to be for the Power Fuels employees, is my understanding. That being said, it's still better that you build it for your employees so they don't take over other housing. So that's a factor that you have. You have to factor in as well that, just because we have approved X number of apartments in the past, those people may, like you talked about, there's a constraining factor of where do you get your contractors, your laborers in order to build. In today's environment, all of our non-traditional housing is pretty much filled. You have your RVs and you have the mobile home courts that are pretty much filled when it comes to this time of year as it starts to warm up. Your hotels are already full. We've seen X number of hotels come over to last year, and they are already rented out pretty much. And we're hoping that this year we'll have 3 to 4 that will come online. But what I understand from them, they're already pre-sold, or at least a significant portion of that. So you can't necessarily rely upon those hotel rooms. And what do? Well, we haven't had an application yet to have come forward to be approved for crew camp housing. We were hoping that we would have one on the east side, and that's kind of fell through on the city's property, and we're hoping that that will come through, and another vendor may come forth on it and alleviate some of that pressure. You know, some of the people that are in the hotels can now be in a crew camp facility that's approved, that's in the right location, and that could alleviate some of the pressure going into hotels, so that the developers that have their entitlement, that have the approval in order to build, can bring their crew in, because they can't find enough people here locally to build it, because they're already maxed out, as you've already commented on, Mr. Senator Nolan. So, you know, we have a constraining factor here, and that is, how do you get your initial foothold in? And the people come to us with well intentions, with expectations, we are going to build, but when it comes to, okay, logistically, how do we do that? That's where they run into problems, because then it takes them about a year. The people that came and talked to me last year are now building those projects because it took them a year to rent out those 2 or 3 houses to get that one apartment unit in order to get their initial employees in, so they could build their first apartment complex or their first couple of houses to house their employees, so then they could start building in order to provide dwelling units for the public. So it takes about a year, and I don't, you know, that's just my rough estimate of a lot of these developers in order to get a foothold here, because they, you know, they're coming from other areas. Normally, when you come in an explosive area, there may be there's still a market left in order for you to come in. You know, there's a housing available or whatever. We were a small community, relatively speaking, you know, of between 15 to 16,000, and then all this started to happen. We didn't have a lot of leftover housing, and whatever we did got used up very, very quickly. So now, in order for somebody to come, you have to build. But it's the chicken and egg story. You can't build without the people, but the people have to have housing. So it's a difficult compromise to come through.
Thank you.
Mr. Elton.
Mr. Chairman. And I noticed the property owner is Arista Development, Artie Offit, is who's apparently building this project or going forward with this project. And I realize that their presence in this area is going to be increasing. Are they building this for their own personnel, or what's going on here?
I don't know. The applicant could do that, but we're looking at it as just like Power Fuels. They build an apartment complex.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's for their employees or for the public. We look at it as a traditional housing unit with respect to that.
Well, and eventually, hopefully the housing needs, the housing catches up with the needs.
Correct.
But at some point, these apartments are going to, what bothers me so is that we overbuild in R3. That is my greatest concern.
Mr. Shellman may be able to answer that question for Mr. Elton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe a little broader view of our company, just to help you understand who we are and maybe the power behind us to show that we're going to be a continuing presence and not walk away from property. Arista Development is a DBA. We're owned entirely by Artie Offit Company, RDO Equipment Company. We indeed, on the agenda tonight, today, you'll probably see that we're planning on building or hoping to build a 20 to 30,000 square foot new John Deere facility on the north edge of town. We're also bringing our RDO Truck Center into the existing facility we have on the east edge of town, and that's going to be expanded by about 15,000 square feet. So to the specific question, yes, we have housing needs, and there's nothing out there. Do we need 176 units? No, but we believe this community is going to continue to grow, and that there's some stability in this community because of we heard about the wise decisions that you as a board and your city council continue to make. We think there's stability here, and that long after places like Williston or other places kind of fade, because that there will be a draw to Dickinson. And so I applaud the discussions you're having, but I do think that there's a need for additional housing, because without that, we as a support industry can't come and do business. So, and I don't think we're the only ones in that particular situation.
Thank you, Mr. Shellman.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jackson.
This discussion about R3 is one that we have to have. A lot of us have been talking about it recently. I was hoping that it could be the topic of one of our interim meetings coming up here and try to find some wisdom on it. I guess this agenda item has prompted some of the discussion. I too have the concern about an overbalance of R3, but I think we have to remember three things. I think as this boom goes on and as it does flatten, which it will eventually, we'll start to see that balance swing back towards the R1, towards the single family, as people put down roots, and there will be less of the R3. That doesn't mean we still can't do too much R3 in the meantime. We have this issue with rent costs in Dickinson, and many have said that the only way we're going to solve it, the only way we're going to really solve it, is to build one too many apartment buildings. So we've got to keep that in mind, and it's trying to quantify where that point is that's so darn difficult. I think that, we all know that this isn't going to happen overnight, getting these things built. It's just not going to. I'm gonna feel that for now we need to go with this. If we restrict R3 development too soon, and again, I've been bringing this up for quite some time, that I feel an imbalance in the R3. But if we restrict it too soon, now we're going to see the value of that property go up even more, and we're going to see rents go up even more. So trying to find that wisdom again as to where the right point is very, very difficult.
And I do agree with you, Mr. Jackson, and I think Mr. Corton, too, has probably got a fairly good feel for it as far as maybe 2 or 3 months down the road, we may see where all those lines are going to converge for supply and demand, and what areas should or shouldn't be rezoned or zoned for multiple use. At this time, I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the public who would like to make comment on this rezoning request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Kalal. I live on 1583 Grasslands Drive. South of there, I'd just like to point out one item for you folks. I'm here to speak on another agenda item, but just so the board is aware, in the half-mile to mile south of here, there are an additional 25 R3 units being planned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to make comment? Please feel free to come forward. Being none, anyone else in the commission wish to make comment on this?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I agree with Gene. There is a need for R3. My only concern is just tipping over here, having too much R3. That's my greatest concern. I believe at the present time we do have a need, no doubt about it. And whether we like it or not, the development or whatever's platted out there tends to flip over. We have a number of development projects going on out there, and a number of developers, maybe 2, 3 developers, own a project that consists of 200, 300 lots. That's a problem that will always exist. And that's what's driving lot prices higher. That's what's driving costs of homes higher. Land costs, in large part. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kovacs.
My understanding is we're going to see, I think Commissioner Elkin asked this earlier, a plot of what the rest of it is going to look like. Apparently that's coming up later on. I guess my question is this, what we're currently looking at right now, going to be part of that other plot? The reason I ask is because, of course, park dedication. So if we rezone this, are we looking at just this area?
At this point in time, for this issue, we are looking at approximately 9.65 acres.
So that's going to be there all by itself?
Yes, the next sketch plat, for the sketch plat that'll come up is presented by someone else for 38 acres. So I believe that would be correct, Mr. Colling, that the way it's presented, they will be looking at dealing with 9.65 acres if there's a subdivision.
Mr. President, Commissioners, the way our park ordinance dedication is written, the fees to the Park District are paid at the time of plating, when the final plat is filed. So it'll depend upon the manner in which they plat this land and the size of the acreage that it is at the time of the platting. Just the rezoning of this doesn't provide for payment of cash in lieu or dedication to the Park District at this time. It'll have to come through at the time of platting.
So we still have plenty of time to take care of that.
Correct.
That's all I have.
If I could just add, Mr. Chairman, that what we have is, at least the item that we're hearing right now, we've kind of mixed the two. We've mixed the sketch plat with the rezone. The sketch plat can be heard later, but we've probably discussed it enough that we could probably pass by it. With the sketch plat, obviously, we'll tell the applicant they need to meet with the Parks District. They know that. They need to get that done before they submit for their preliminary plat. So that part's taken care of. Staff's comments are very minimal based upon what they're proposing for that. The petition in front of you right now is the rezone. The rezone is not park dedication. We can take care of that issue with the subsequent preliminary plat, and that's true with some other items that we have here as well. So,
any other comments? Mr. Colling.
Mr. President, just one other comment. This rezoning in the sketch plat comes with a request for annexation as well. This property is currently not contiguous with city limits, so we wouldn't be able to annex it currently. The property to the south, the Braxton development, is also requesting annexation. Can't quite tell from the plat lines, but it doesn't look like this property is going to touch the Braxton development either, so there is going to have to be some other land annexed in before this property gets annexed to the city limits. That we'll just have to work through those details as we go along, but it is a potential issue we'll have to work through in the future.
So do you feel that rezoning would help that process?
Rezoning won't help that process. I think we'll have to deal with it at the time of platting to make sure that that we can get a contiguous parcel of land in order to annex all of these properties in. Without annexation, the developer is not going to be able to construct R3 properties and connect them to municipal services. So we'll have to work through that annexation process as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Colling.
Mr. Chairman, I could just add to that. We have been working with this applicant, the applicant to the west, the Braxton people to the south, in coordinating, trying to do it as a cumulative or aggregating all the properties together as part of one annexation. We're almost to a point in which we figured out exactly all those properties to make sure they're contiguous, and then we're going to move forward with that to City Commission. We just need to figure out what adjacent properties would be included within that. So we're working with those applicants as part of that process. If you rezone this, or at least recommend approval for the rezoning, and for some reason the annexation fell through for this property, they would not develop it as an R3 because they would either have to drill a well or they would have to get water from Southwest Water, and Southwest Water is limited on what they have, so it wouldn't meet their development expectations. So I think you could feel comfortable that in order for them to develop it as an R3, they will be annexed into it. Obviously, on the preliminary plat, we'll condition it that they have to be annexed in before it's officially recorded. The rezone, I don't think we need to put a condition for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jackson.
I'm thinking about this, and one of the things that we can do, in order for these people to get building permits, they have to have the rezoning done and the platting done. Whenever we do that rezoning, we're going to be looking at two other projects today. They're going to be very significant R3. We can take a preliminary plat on those entire tracts, but then ask for the final to be phased at the developer's discretion. So if we want to watch this R3 a little bit, we could bring those larger developments in phases and will allow us to fine-tune our thought as that happens.
Yes. That is good. Good idea. Any other comments? This time, I'll close the public portion of this hearing and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Elkins.
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend the approval of the rezone petition from Ag to R3 as depicted in the application materials, as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
Is there a second? A second by Mr. Hanson. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Recommend to rezone. Thank you very much. Item 7 on our agenda, if you don't have a corrected copy of this, it's a rezoning request. Item 7 is not a preliminary plan. It's a rezoning request to consider a rezone petition from R1 and R2 to PR1, R2, and R3 with a PUD overlay for the property described as a replat of lots 1 through 3 and part of Lot 4, Block 3, North Industries First Edition, and all of Blocks 1 through 4, Lion Subdivision. And I ask the party presenting, please come forward.
You get to deal with me again. Well, I appreciate the Chair and Commission's time. I know Lion Subdivision has come before you multiple times. I hope today that we as a developer can offer a unique solution and show some neighborhood support. So with that, Lion Subdivision is uniquely located between some industrial zoning as well as some low-density residential zoning. We believe that a mixed-density neighborhood is necessary to provide an adequate transition between those uses. As developers of property throughout the state, we've found that in certain cases, PUDs are appropriate to the discussion that was taking place earlier, whereby the city and the developer can attach terms and conditions to a development plan to make sure that there's an appropriate transition and to let adjacent owners know exactly what to expect and what to know is going to happen. So with that, if I might just walk through a couple items. We have met with some of the neighbors. I believe some of them are here today to speak to you as well. And I believe come to an understanding of what steps are necessary to provide that appropriate transition. I believe you should have in your packet this material. Since those ongoing discussions have taken place, there have been a few additional items we have agreed to, so I just want to share those with the board. We have agreed to extend a solid screen fence along the east property line. So that would extend all the way from the northeast corner in the rear yards down to the connection to 7th. Furthermore, we've agreed to extend screening not only past these multifamily buildings, but connecting into the proposed R2 townhome development that you'll see at this location. We've also agreed to provide some access easements through the proposed R3 zoning so that in the event the property to the south should ever develop, they would have adequate access through our property. And we've further agreed that for the purposes of our development, the improvement today of 7th Avenue is not necessary. There is some concern of what will happen with traffic, so we've oriented that development to access 4th and have the traffic, particularly the R3 traffic, offload through that industrial area where heavier traffic can be accommodated more appropriately versus the gravel roads and the unimproved roads to the east and north. So with that, there's a lot of details here. I know you have it in front of you, and so in the essence of time, I'd be glad to address any specific questions that you may have. I think what we're providing as part of the PUD as well as what we're requesting is all in your packet, and I'm glad to address any questions. Just for the sake of discussion, I believe you also will have some renderings that were done of that property. The existing zoning that's in place today would allow development that looks like this. There's an existing tree row, which is part of a previous agreement with the adjoining landowner. This picture shows what our design would look like without additional landscaping, and the design in the middle shows what that will look like with the additional landscaping we've agreed to. So you can see just from an aesthetic standpoint, the visual difference and what we're talking about. So I'll just leave it at that unless there's questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Shulman at this time? Thank you, Mr. Shulman. At this time, I'd ask if there's anyone from the public who would like to make comment. Please feel free to come forward.
Commissioners, my name is Ike Kuntz. I represent Ike and Sandy Kuntz. We own 55 acres directly south of this property. So our 20 borders the south side of this. And we have had a couple discussions with Mr. Shulman. We have reached a preliminary agreement with the developer. The neighbor to the east, Brenton Sand and Shelley, have also been involved in these discussions. So I guess with that said, we support the sketch plan with R3 being approved and go on to preliminary plat contingent on finalizing the terms of our agreement with the developer. But we visited with him a couple nights, and it's Benton Shannon to the east of us has been involved with this. It's already R2, so we hope that they would do a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Coons. This time, I'd ask if there's anyone else who'd like to make comment. Please feel free to come forward.
Hi, I'm Laura Marsh. I live directly to the north of the R2 in Northview Acres, and I didn't see where the fence is going. He said he's putting a screening up. We weren't included, as a neighbor, we weren't including it in any of the discussions.
Maybe Mr. Toos can clarify that?
Yeah.
Right in here. Your property's right here.
Okay, so it's going to go all the way around in here?
We blocked this. This is Sally's right here.
Okay.
This is your house right here. We got rid of that road for you.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with this, do that.
Okay, thank you, thank you. At this time, I'd ask, is there anyone else who'd like to make comment? Any comments from the commission?
Mr. President?
Mr. Coley.
I would just note, this property line subdivision is subject to a memorandum of understanding between the city, Mr. and Mrs. Kuntz, and a couple of other parties. And part of that memorandum of understanding was that line subdivision would be maintained as an R1 or R2 designated property. If that is being revised with the consent of the developer and the Kuntzes, we will have to revise that memorandum of understanding and get the appropriate signatures from all parties to agree to that. I don't think it precludes your action on the matter at this time, but we will have to bring that memorandum of understanding again before the City Commission prior to final approval of this concept.
Thank you, Mr. Coley. My only comment is that well, I do like the PUDs and I like the development. I'd like to be assured of what follow-up there is, that the borders, the landscaping on that on a PUD is followed through with. We haven't had that many of them here, but I'd like to see assurances that that part of it is going to be taken care of.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the question, and that's the question that I have, would be, you have two avenues if you wanted to continue to move forward with the approval of that. This is a time in which you could put a condition on the PUD. There have been some changes made. I'm not exactly sure what all those are to be able to enforce that. So, it's your call if you want to recommend approval to have those points clarified by the time that the PUD moves forward to City Commission for their approval, or you could just say that everything has to be clarified, described. What I normally do as a PUD is they come in with a very good descriptive element with renderings, with everything that they're telling you. They describe it in detail so that you or I or anyone else could look at it and know they're in compliance, instead of, well, yes, we're going to put landscape and we're going to put fence. It's all there, it's all codified, it makes it easy to compare. So if you want that detail in order to feel comfortable with it, then my recommendation would be continue it until next month, until we can get all that detailed and have it as part of your motion. Or if you feel comfortable with what's been portrayed, you could say that you will just rely upon staff to have that clarified before it's brought forth to city commission level. Because this is a rezone, what they're doing now, to PUD overlay with the R2 and R3 in there. So it's your call which way you want to move forward with this.
Well, my comments on that would be, I'm comfortable with it moving forward if it's so, that's the way the vote goes, that we put it on your shoulders, because the city commission is going to be aware of that those things have to be codified, that they have to be detailed when they get it. Otherwise, it probably won't go.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jackson.
This is a pretty unique situation because of this agreement that exists already, and I would expect that would be the tool we would use, would be to use the agreement to detail, no?
You could, it's a differing one. I would recommend the agreement be modified accordingly by the parties. The PUD, the additional stuff to be codified if you want to in the agreement, but that was for easements and that was for other matters. The PUD will condition it accordingly. We'll have renderings of the building, we'll see what the fence is going to be, I'll know the number of trees, I'll know how far the lines will be, so that everyone's clear, so we don't have a situation in the future where, oh, I thought you were going to do this and it was not done. It'll be clarified, it'll be contained within the application for approval at final stage. That would be my recommendation, but if Attorney Colling wants to do it differently, I'm open to that as well.
Mr. Colling.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I think Mr. Corton has a right on the PUD of what he would require on there, and has an appropriate procedure on that. I think on the memorandum of understanding, we'll just have to modify that to take out the requirement that Lion subdivision be maintained as an R1 or R2 designation. Sounds like the parties have that agreement already, but the maintenance of Lion subdivision as R1 and R2 was part of the consideration that was given to Mr. and Mrs. Kuntz for their dedication of easements, sewer and water easements to the city in order to develop some of the property on the north side of town. We're now revising that, taking some of that consideration away, and the Kuntzes will have to agree to that in order to maintain this property as an R3, or part of it as an R3 designation.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. Any other comments? Questions? Being none, we'll close the public portion of this hearing, and I would ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Elkins.
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezone petition from R1 and R2 to P, R1, R2, and R3 with PUD overlay, as depicted in the application materials, as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Item 8, we have a preliminary plat, to consider a preliminary plat for Prairie Creek subdivision, and generally described in the northwest quarter of Section 33, Township 140 North, Range 96 West. This time I'd ask the party presenting, please come forward.
Good morning, I'm Troy Tews with Lightteller Johnson Associates out of Fargo, representing the developer for Prairie Creek subdivision. As you can see, it's a mix of R1, R2, and R3 development, and I'm here to answer any questions. We have met with the city planner and the city engineer. We are working with all of the adjacent property owners, and would like your consideration.
Mr. Tews, it looks like a good layout. I question the name of all these roads, though. Have they been really named, what they are? That's, I mean, my biggest concern is, if you drive in there, you don't know if you're on Grasslands Drive or...
We're open to name changes. We just pulled those out for discussion purposes. If the city
Any other
planner...
comments or questions? Mr. Elton?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Ed, do we need to have the names of streets on here at the plating time or at this time? Should they even be there?
That's a debate issue that I haven't got a definitive answer on. There are some surveyors that say all you have to do is label it as a street or a road, you know, and you come back and because names change, and if you already have it in a plat, it's memorialized at that point when it's recorded. Others want to have it on there. I personally feel it could be done as long as, you know, with the idea that anybody looks at it in the future that name may change and you just deal with it that way. It makes more sense for the average person to look at a plat because the names are going to, for the most part, be there. You know, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, they can look at it and go, okay, I can understand where my property's at, instead of it just being called the road or street for that. I have not looked at it with respect to the names to see if they are unique names. If you look at my recommended conditions of approval, which are numerous at this point, one of them is to rename Grasslands so that you won't have that same name, and that's for emergency purposes. Last thing you want to do is have Grassland Circle, Grassland Drive, Grassland Road. I lived in a complex like that, and it gets very confusing, and you're in the rush, the adrenaline's going, and you just say Grasslands, and you tell them the wrong thing, and that could be the time, that could be the difference in an emergency situation. So they need to be unique with respect to that. There is one issue that I want you to consider as part of whatever deliberation and motion that you do have, would be, this is a preliminary plat application. The current zoning is R1. There is not a rezone application with that. That may have been something that they overlooked, but it's not attached with it, so it's not advertised with this application. They are proposing to put that in, and they have it within the rezone, within the preliminary plat. The question brings forth then, this is an R1 zone. Any lots that are below 7,000 square feet, and I didn't have a chance to check and see if there were, if there are any lots within that, then in essence, you couldn't approve it unless you had, I mean, below 7,500 square feet, unless you had a rezoning attached with it. I believe all of them are above that. Is that right, Mr. Tews?
Yes.
If they are, then you could approve it, and then they could come back later with a rezoning to overlay to match up with the lot lines on there. So I guess that issue is resolved. I didn't have a chance to take a look at it before the meeting, so you could remove that. I do have 5 proposed or 6 proposed conditions of approval. I would hope that you would include them in whatever motion you do have. I can go through them if you like to discuss those, just so all are involved, if you want me to do that, Mr. Chairman.
I think it'd be appropriate at this time while Mr. Tews is up.
Okay. One question I do have, Mr. Tews, would be Union Drive. You have it stopping before you reach State Avenue. We're going to limit access off of State Avenue, and I would feel that Union Drive, I'm hoping that Union Drive could match up with the adjoining property directly across the street with what they're proposing. Do you know if that matches up with it? And if it does, I would propose that Union Drive should extend westerly to State in order to provide access to that commercial piece. What we want to limit is 1 or 2 driveways to the commercial property and have it so that they come off Union Drive and maybe curve in at that point to try to keep a free flow as best we can along State Avenue.
We wouldn't have a problem doing that. We've sent this plat to the Braxton Group, who is doing the development across the street. And we're currently working with them to make sure that all the streets onto States, Grasslands, 19th, and Union, if it's your wish that continue to States, line up and that we have straight through to provide the greatest safety.
That would limit the access that we'd have on State. Maybe we could have access as, depending on how that commercial development comes about. Grassland Circle Drive needs to be changed, just the name itself, Grassland Circle, and then you have an additional, those are two road names next to one another. I'm not necessarily opposed to having maybe two grasslands with it, but I think probably for clarification, it makes more sense just to have one unique name throughout your development. The other conditions that I would recommend would be number 3, prior to final plat approval, the Parks Department shall provide a recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission relative to the park dedication or payment in lieu and the bike trail. I'm not sure, I don't believe they have met with you yet, so I wanted to make sure that issue is resolved. Prior to final plat approval, the proposed bike path shall be located outside of any lots and should be a minimum of 6 feet wide, hard surface bike path, and shall further be maintained by a homeowners association or other funding mechanisms acceptable by the city. The reason I propose this condition is that it makes more sense if you're going to have a bike path or trail, which should be as part of this development, to not have each individual section to be relied upon on the individual lot owners. I've had that before in a development. It doesn't work. It's difficult and it's onerous if you have a major problem on one, that all of a sudden one property owner, it's on their property, they have to pay all the costs to get it repaired while everybody's benefiting from it. So it should be outside of those property lines, and it should be part of a homeowners association. Prior to final plat, the 100-year floodplain shall be depicted. We want to make sure that that's showing on there. And then prior to final plat approval, a development agreement shall be recommended approval by the city engineer. There's a lot of development issues with respect to road drainage, what that cost share is with our current development impact fees. We want to have all those issues ironed out prior to final plat approval to make sure that this all works. So that would be staff's recommendations, to include that within your motion if you have a favorable recommendation today.
And at this time, then, Mr. Tooze, if you would like to make comments on any of those, you can, or you can take them with you.
We have no problem with any of Ed's recommendations.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Tooze? Mr. Nodland?
Yeah. Again, 2 questions. How many R3 units are in there? I see you have a total of 270 units, but most of them are R1s and R2s.
We have not defined what's going to be on those R3 lots at this point.
Okay.
The developer is an R1 developer, and he prefers to do R1. He does want to do some R3, but that is how he exactly wants to fill these lots at this point is undefined.
If I may, second question, how your time frame of developing this?
He wants to get a significant portion of this stuff, of this development in this year. He realizes it's probably not practical that it's going to happen within a year. I'm thinking it's a 2 to 3 year time frame.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions for Mr. Tooze?
Mr. Chairman, I do have
Mr.
one
Kolar.
question. The bike path you have shown, is that something, and I think Ed referred to it as a homeowners association taking care of it? Is that a bike path that the developer plans on putting in?
Yes, we planned on doing that all along.
Okay, so that wouldn't be part of the park
And we do plan on meeting with the park
Okay.
district, and we recognize that there'll be some additional land in here will probably be dedicated to park.
All right.
And we will have, we wish to have some park included with the R3 development anyway, so we'll make that work together.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Tooze? Thank you, Mr. Tooze.
Thank you.
This time I'd ask if there's anyone in the public who would like to make comment. Please feel free to come forward.
Thank you, Chairman and Board. My name is David Kalal. I live at 1583 Grasslands Drive. I realize this takes a lot of time and energy. A bunch of us are here away from work. You folks are away from work. There's so many things. This might take just a little bit. And Mr. Kostelecki got called away. He's going to try to be back by the time I finish, because he certainly has some comments. First of all, it was gratifying to hear that this is all zoned R1. All of us in our neighborhood along 15th Avenue and Prairie Creek Road and Grasslands Drive strongly believe that this is an R1 neighborhood, and to tie into our neighborhood, which is a strongly coveted R1 type neighborhood, we object to most of this R3 and the density of this unit. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is the traffic flow, and I wish we had a better map. I've blown up the map I got from the city. I'd like to hand this out to you if I could. Is that okay? Just so you get a sense of, on the bottom right of this map is our existing neighborhood. Prairie Creek Road ends in a cul-de-sac right about where the D is on the Prairie Creek Road, or just past that. So Prairie Creek Road is not an egress of any sort. Prairie Creek Road, if you take a right-hand turn, that's 15th Avenue. There's approximately 4 to 5 houses. So 15th Avenue is a very short little street. Single-family homes, young couples. Some of the people that couldn't be here have young kids. Again, approximately 200 yards. That intersects with Grasslands Drive, again about 200 yards from Grassland Drive on a curve, mailbox accumulation, single-family homes, and then you come to 15th Avenue. It appears to all of us that live in this neighborhood that the majority of traffic that will leave this new neighborhood is going to funnel out Prairie Creek Road or Grasslands Drive. You take 900, 1,200 people funneling out through our little neighborhood. It's a tremendous impact. I can't say it anymore. It's a tremendous impact we're facing on the traffic here. I'm going to talk about Grasslands Drive. Grasslands Drive at the bottom of the map on the right-hand corner is at a very, very low elevation. Our neighbors and I have snow-blowed that street numerous times to keep that intersection open. It's a terrible intersection for catching snow. It also will come under impact as this neighborhood is built and all that pavement goes in. Grasslands Drive from State Avenue all the way through the neighborhood follows the bottom of the creek. I already have water flowing over the top of the curb from the 100 feet I have to the west of me, or from coming down 15th. If that gets paved all the way out to State Avenue, I imagine I could canoe down that street on a 1 or 2 inch rain. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the number of units that are going in, and I have some questions for Ed if I could. You folks have talked about 10,000 square feet for R2. And again, that proves how difficult this is for an average citizen. And I don't consider myself average. My brother's the head of the planning and zoning up in Williston. So I think I know some of this issue of growth that you're facing. And I look at 7,266 square feet lots designated R2, and I don't get that. I don't understand how that's legal.
Well, I could let you finish your comment.
Okay, so that's definitely an issue. But the overall impact of this high-density housing does not meet this 65 to 70% single-family. Mr. Tews, you said that your developer is a single-family type developer. You mentioned that you had worked with the existing homeowners, and I can tell you that when I walked around Sunday night to talk to the homeowners, my copy of this map is the first they've seen of this project. And I realize we're a small neighborhood, but I can tell you this is going to be a huge impact on 15th Avenue and Grasslands Drive. I can talk about the impact on the valuation of the homes that are there when this high-density housing comes in next door. You folks know that the city has sent out letters raising property values 10%. There's property values going up and up and up. But nobody talks about the impact then of what happens next door. Does the city then get the assessor out, and do we start lowering values like an appraiser would because of location and traffic impact? I'm also concerned with this traffic flow and the impact for fire and police. One of the neighbors mentioned that the police department would want to see this plan, because they have friends that work there, and they think that this is not a plan that they would like because of the lack of access to this area. Control of erosion, control of garbage, construction impact, keeping construction equipment off of the existing roadways, all of that plays into my objection to this. We're very unsure of the access to State Avenue as this plan is presented. We know that there should be access to 21st Street West, but there's Water Creek Slough in the way there. There's no direct access to the south away from this development. The traffic issue here alone, and I did get the neighbors to sign a statement objecting to that traffic flow. I'll turn that into you. And the last thing, when you add this all up and you look at 1,000 or more people potentially living in this little area with 1,000 or more vehicles, I hope this board strongly takes into account the impact this will have. And then as you sit here and listen to more and more R3 units across the street to the north, it even becomes more apparent that this was zoned R1 originally because it fits the existing neighborhood, and it just seems like it should stay R1. I know there's other neighbors here, and I know I've taken more time than I should. I'll turn in this petition with all the neighborhood signing. I can't say it's 100%. I missed one couple, so it's about 95%. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Quell. This time I'd ask if there's someone who else would like to make comment on this. Please feel free to come forward. Any comments from the commission? Mr. Corton, would you like to?
I could answer the R2 question, and that's a common question that people ask. You could have an R2, in our current zoning regulations, you could have an R2 lot, if that's approved for that designation, that can go down to 7,000 square feet. That being said, that's the minimum lot size. An R2 zone allows single family and also multifamily. So you have to factor in the lot size with the density. So if you get an R2 lot at 7,000 square feet, that's a single family lot. You need to have 10,500 if you want a duplex on it. If you want to have a triplex on it, then it would have to be 7,000, it'd have to be 13,000 in order to have that, because it's 7,000 for the first and 3,000 for each subsequent one. If you wanted to have a fourplex on it, it would have to be 16,000 square feet. So there's two issues here. If they show 7,000 square foot lots, they're limited to single family. So in de facto, that's an R1 zone, unless they aggregate a couple of lots together in order to get higher density. So that's a common question that people ask. Just because you have a 7,000 square foot lot doesn't mean you can split it in half.
Thanks for that clarification, and also that we must stay focused. This is a preliminary plat at this point in time. There's no rezoning going on at this point in time. The issues that were brought up for the preliminary plat by Mr. Corton are valid, the 5 points. So I think we should stay on track with that as our agenda item. This is a preliminary plat. If it goes to something else down the road, then we will deal with it at that point in time.
With respect to the transportation networks, the city engineer has looked at it. We looked at this whole corridor to determine where the road should be. States is going to be a major collector arterial as part of the future expansion, just as much as 21st is. So you would limit access on that. That's why we're not having as many access points. Grasslands Drive and 19th correspond to our future alignment that we would have going across the street and proceeding westerly. Staff would recommend that Union would be attached to be perpendicular to match up with the adjacent property to the west so that you have that common point. We do not want to have a lot of access points. With respect to the traffic flow, I would see the vast majority of it going to State Avenue. It would make sense for people to go through Prairie Creek if we allowed that to the south. You know, it would make sense that everybody's going to go westerly to get out of it. The way the lot designations are, of course, that's a rezoning will come in the future, the heavier intensity is pushed towards State Avenue, which makes sense, instead of having it inward in which you would go down local roads. But that being said, that's another petition that come forth. We're just looking at a preliminary plat today with respect to an R1 zone. But the traffic patterns and the rest, if per the city engineer, these would be fine.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I know we're not looking at rezoning, but the proposed land use affects the size of lots and whatnot. Are you saying this is already zoned R1?
The current zoning on it's R1, yes. Yes. It's inside the city limits, it's designated as R1.
Okay.
And they would need to come back. So the question remains, you know, with respect to the rezoning, how you feel about that. The lot sizes, as was mentioned, are reflective of what they're proposing potentially for R2 and R3 to come back probably next month. So it's your call if you want to continue this and then evaluate the lot size or evaluate the subdivision with respect to the rezoning. That makes sense. You know, if you want to continue it based upon that issue, that would be a reasonable reason to table it because you want to make sure that the lot sizes are reflective to what what the rezoning should be for the property. So it's your call, whichever way you want to proceed forward with it.
Any other comments? Mr. Nodland?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Porton, do we know any idea what that commercial lot up in the corner would be? Has anything been indicated about that?
I have not heard anything for that. I was adamant that I felt that staff, that they need to have a commercial portion. I feel strongly that at major intersections, they should have a portion set aside for commercial on that. It doesn't make sense to have abutting residential properties at major intersections. Those are valuable intersections for commerce, for retail trade, and the rest, for city, for all. And as part of staff's recommendation, that we felt that it had to be a minimum of 3 acres. That makes sense with the property to the west as well. They proposed to put commercial there at that southwestern corner as well. It only makes sense in major intersections to have commercial instead of residential uses.
Any other questions or comments?
One other one.
Nodland?
Chairman, and one other one. We're directly to the south that says unplotted. Is that zoned R1 now?
I believe on that piece there, it is R1. There's a portion left over from where Kostelecki is building their commercial. There's a piece that goes past the oil well. So that should be, that should be R1. Like, the question is, where does the Kostelecki commercial CC zone start? And I don't know if it comes up to that road, or I believe there's a little piece still left over as R1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I have a couple, Mr. Chairman. First of all, there's a couple real critical engineering things going on here, and I've given those thoughts to the city engineer. I don't think we have to go into them today, but when this does come back for final, or however it comes back, I think we need to know that the city engineer is satisfied on those engineering issues. Secondly, you know, I don't, this preliminary plat is really contingent on what land use we think is appropriate for up here. If we think it should be more R1, you know, that's going to change the layout of this plat. So it seems we have to have that discussion. This would be an example of a plat that we could approve a preliminary and then phase the final as we watch this R3 situation if we wanted to. But I think we do have to, at some point, if not today, at some point, talk about the land use part of it, because it's really going to affect the plat. I'd like to ask the neighbors, the traffic concern, is that really 15th that you're concerned about with traffic?
It's the only exit, sir.
15th?
Yeah.
That's the, yeah.
Prairie Green Drive ends in the cul-de-sac, and then it just appears to us that east half of this will get on North Grasslands Drive, and it's human nature, it's all downhill. They'll come out through that neighborhood.
Yeah, I just-
agree with this, Ed saying that the bulk of the traffic will go to the west.
I just wanted to clarify that the concern was on 15th, and
15th and Grasslands where it exits to 15th Street at 15th Avenue.
well, one thing you might consider is running 19th all the way through to Prairie Creek Road. That would give an outlet for people who might be using 15th. That would also allow pedestrian access over to that trail if it's built.
Mr. Jackson, I'm Craig Steve.
Should we get him to come up to the podium?
I'm Craig Steve. I live on 1570 Prairie Creek Road, and Larry sat down, and I hadn't seen Larry all winter. He's been in Phoenix, but he sat down. He said his original master plan, which he has somewhere many, many years ago, this is primarily all R1, as well as it is zoned R1. And he said Prairie Creek Road extended up through 21st Street. And the majority, there was very little and hardly any R3 in there, and very, very little R2 at that point in time. And I wish we would have an opportunity. Larry had to leave, he got a phone call, and he would like to speak or have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Corton before he goes back to Phoenix at the end of the week. And so there might be an opportunity for this to be tabled so we can look at these opportunities to get some better egress and ingress. The opportunity, you know, I don't know, many years ago, developments came through and there was frontage roads were used. We don't see those nowadays, and obviously that's because of the cost of land. But in this case, we're funneling, as David said, and he did a very excellent job, we're funneling all these people from the north down into Grasslands Drive. And we're going to have a congestion down there with hundreds and hundreds of people each morning leaving, going to school type thing. You got to remember, these people will go to the school district will be north. So they're going to need an access to get from this area to the school district that their kids are going to be going to, as well as accesses to States Avenue. So that's my primary concern, is the fact that to get in and out of this. And yes, Dave is correct. This one was engineered. Grasslands Drive becomes a river because of the flow of water. And so that's got to be addressed also in this final plat. So if anything else, that's my only comment at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Are there any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nauman.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Steve. I agree with Mr. Jackson, too. I know that we got to do something with the preliminary plat, but there's definitely some road issues, and there's a floodplain issue here. That definitely, and I guess Mr. Corton brought that up, but those lots that are along that drainage ditch, being in the financial industry most of my life, I'm sure there's some floodplain issues there that have to be addressed, and what value those lots are, if somebody could even borrow money to build a house on those lots. And then getting that, the people, yes, the schools are to the north, but most of these people probably that would move in here probably will work to the south or to the east. They go to the mall to the east or the south. So I just think, I'm not an engineer, but I just think some roads need to be addressed here, and also the floodplain issue with that. I just wished we could leave it R1 until we get to the zone, or look at the zoning part of it, but
And at this point
I
in
guess
time,
in this point in time, we have to vote on
at
this.
this point in time, we have to leave it as R1
Yeah, I
because
know.
we're strictly dealing with a preliminary plat.
Well, with respect to your question, you could table it until they have provided a rezone petition, and then you evaluate the rezone petition based upon that with respect to the lot sizes. That's fine to do it that way, if you feel comfortable with that, instead of recommending approval one way or the other of it today, because if there's a case that if, based upon their proposal of today, if that's rejected by, ultimately the city commission, by your recommendation, that they would come back and they would replat it to be more representative of an R1 or just an R1 and R2 instead of an R3 along the roadway. So, you know, it's different ways to look at it. I think probably based upon your comments, it would make sense to continue it until the rezone application's been submitted and evaluate it holistically at that point.
Mr. Tews, hearing these comments, I'll give you consideration here. What would be favorable to you? Would it be favorable to you to see this tabled until you meet with Mr. Corton, city engineers, and then come back?
We don't want to lose any time this year. I don't know that I'd save time whether or not I'm tabled.
Otherwise, you just make a decision today based upon that, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Jackson?
Can I ask, which areas would you be concentrating on this summer?
The R1.
So it'd be the east end of the...
Well, here's another alternative, is that I would presume that you would submit your rezoning request at the next meeting, which would mean you need to get an application in today for the rezoning, which can be done. This project can move forward, you know, that's preliminary. It could move forward at that point, and then the rezoning can catch up to it. If the rezoning is rejected, then they just don't go through and get it recorded, essentially, and they'll just come back and modify it. So, you know, it's however you want to do that.
Well, what I hear is that this preliminary plat doesn't meet some satisfactions, that if it got the final plat, this way it's not going to continue on. So there has to be some changes made at some point in time. If we continue on with the preliminary plat, approve it, gives you time to address those issues, realizing the conversations today are going to move you in another direction on some of this. Some of these accesses have to be satisfied to address the low water or the high water issues.
Yes.
Possibility. Would that facilitate you?
Yes.
Okay. I myself see no reason not to go on with the preliminary plat. I see there was a lot of things that have to be done to it, but as far as just approving the preliminary, so they can continue on with these discussions and satisfy the questions. If they don't do that, it won't go anywhere. But if they do, this enables them to move on in a more timely fashion for their needs. Well, I know it's not on here, but there must be some good ideas on what you really plan on putting down,
Yes.
right? You're not just going to come up with something between now and next month.
No.
You have a pretty good idea what you'd like to have placed on here, whether it's R1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Eventually, right?
I believe our developer has sent preliminary housing plans or housing similar to, or similar housing that he's done in the Seattle area that he plans to put on this development, and I believe that's been forwarded to Ed.
Mr. Chairman, I asked the question about
Mr. Jackson.
what area they were going to look at first, thinking that perhaps they could bring in a plat just for that area while we look at the rest of it a little bit more. I really like the idea, I like that I'm hearing they're going to concentrate on R1. We need that in the community. So I like that idea. Personally, I'd like to see more R1 in here. That's just my opinion. I'd like to see more R1 in here than what's here. I'm afraid the plat's going to change so much with what we're talking about today that the final isn't going to look very much like the preliminary, which isn't a good thing.
That's my feeling too. It's going to change. And the only consideration is to give them a chance to change it. They knowing full well that it's going to have to be changed quite a bit.
So I guess with that, I don't know that we have a choice, you know, of approving this. But, you know, maybe this is an exception we should make and ask him to come back for one of our interim meetings, just to speed it up a little bit.
That would be fine. We do meet, special meetings, we have been for probably the last half year now, I don't know, every 2 weeks. So that there are some ways to facilitate final plats, other things that people have shown that, been shown that they should make consideration of. Mr. Tews.
Mr. Chairman, Tracy Tews with Dickinson Energy Park. What's not being mentioned here is that Mr. Corton and Will Ralph with Braxton and MRC Group and everybody met and kind of ghost planned that whole 160 acres from the north of 21st and the 40 acres to the west side of States and the east side. Lots of movement has been done with those roads to connect with the intersecting roads across the street on States. The north-south roads, there hasn't been much movement on that, and, you know, there is much engineering to come before a final plot is met, but there has been some movement. There has been, I believe, 2 meetings, and Will Ralph has hosted them through the firm in Billings, and done a lot of movement with those roads. So there has been a lot of movement with those streets. Now, zoning is another issue, and that's with the independent developer that I sold the land to, but the roadways have been thought of and have been planned. The elevations have not yet been determined, because I don't believe there has been a sewer study yet either, so.
Thank you, Mr. Tews.
Mr. Chairman, I have to comment on that.
Mr. Jackson.
You know, this plat looks so much better than it did, in my opinion, than when we first saw it. There has been a lot of improvement made to this plat. The engineering work on a plat really should be done by the time of preliminary plat stage. It should be all done. It should only be finalizing the survey aspects of it into the final plat. I do think there are a couple serious engineering issues on this that probably haven't been looked at yet, and Mr. Tews just stated hasn't been a sanitary study done on it, and that's one of the issues I think we're going to find on here. I could be wrong, but whether I'm right or wrong, the point is that it should be looked at by this phase of the thing. So I just have to put that perspective on it.
Thank you. Did you have a comment, sir?
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Cole.
I couldn't agree with Mr. Jackson more. I feel like most of the homeowners that are affected would urge you to table this till we can see a plat that clearly reflects what the final plan might look like. There are so many changes being proposed or discussed that it just seems like, how can you approve a preliminary plat? It almost gives this tacit approval then when it comes to the zoning changes and so on down the line. Or if you table this today and we get to see a clearer picture of what's going to go in here, perhaps then there'd be less opposition at the zoning change. So I'd urge you to table this today.
Any other comments? So I'm going to ask you again, Mr. Tews, Troy, being what you've heard as far as the engineering, whether this gets denied as a preliminary or tabled, you would be prepared to come back in 3 to 4 weeks with a more extensive description of the engineering and the roads and where the proposed R1, 2, and 3 possibly would be on this plot of land prior to even a rezoning request.
I will make the rezoning request today.
Okay.
And as far as the issues that Ed brought up, I don't see is that they're that significant that we couldn't handle them in the next month.
Thank you, Mr. Tooze, and thank you very much for your clarification. Any other comments? If being none, we'll close the public portion of this hearing, and I would ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, in light of the unanswered questions, I'm going to move that we table the preliminary plat of the Prairie Creek subdivision.
And a second by Mr. Hanson. Any discussion?
I would like to see, Mr. Chairman, I think we should accommodate as fast a pace as we can, because I think there are some good things that can happen in this subdivision.
I think so, too. And I would suggest, depending on the vote here, that we do, like I said, we do have those special meetings, and I think we could fit it in, because I firmly believe that the developer knows pretty much what he wants to do. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Mr. Elkins.
I really like the layout of this subdivision. I really thought it was, for R1, I think it's an appropriate use. I really like the layout. I like the property where it's located. Hopefully, we can make this thing work.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, signify